Alright, we started. Hello, everyone. This is 896 here with Varian Dathmeyer, Scully, and War Doctor.
Hello.
Yee.
You know, I gotta be honest, I'm a little bit impressed that
Game
you
Grumps
pronounced
suck.
that correctly on the first round.
What?
You actually pronounced that correctly on the first time through. Have I explained how to pronounce that before, or did you just do that?
I'm just guessing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're like the first person
I
I've
have
ever
an amazing ability to guess. When I'm at work and people don't bother to say if it's for here to go, I just guess, and more often than not, I'm right.
Oh, I
Game
was gonna be very
suck.
impressed if you said you guessed their order ahead of time.
No, I guess whether they're eating it for here to go.
See, it would have been it really would have been much more impressive if somebody comes in and they walk up to the register and he's just like, I got your order ready. I knew you were coming.
Yeah, they come so often at the same time, and just like, yeah, and there are those customers. But anyway, awkward starts, yay. But anyway, we're here to talk about Game Grumps. So, I'll start off first.
Game Grumps suck.
Ah, that explains why everything was going all fucked up. I was listening to the stream. Fucking idiot. Oh shit. I'm so sorry for my silence. I'm so sorry for that.
Bye bye.
People viewing this, they're viewing this and they're hearing everyone talking at the same time. Little logos are going back and forth.
Oh shit. Okay, I'm so fucking sorry for that. That was complete idiocy on my part. I didn't even realize what the hell was going on.
Oh, don't worry.
Just-
This will be a perfect start in a way because it'll be just like an average Game Grumps video.
Speaking of
20 minutes to get to
icons, we have the turtle, we have the anime, we have the Deadpool, and we have the
No, it's
bowtie.
crocodile.
Crocodile, whatever.
It's a croc with a crown.
Bowser's a Koopa, a turtle dragon.
King K. Rool is the actual
Oh,
name.
that's so cool.
I was talking about King Bowser. King K. Rool's the Donkey Kong villain.
Yeah, that's who I have on
Bowser.
my thumb now.
Okay. You gonna get into this?
Talk about
What an accurate way to start this. It takes the Game Grumps 20 minutes to even take a quick little peek at the screen.
Actually, since we all talk about
No,
Game
it's-
Grumps, there is one thing I do think we should ask about the Game Grumps.
Okay.
Does anybody know how JonTron got kicked off his own stuff?
I think it was because he wanted to leave of his own accord.
No,
Again, I don't really know the official story that
I
well,
did
but
some research on it, and it was actually weird because it says that Aaron kicked him off Game Grumps,
Wouldn't surprise me.
which is confusing
I-
because JonTron made Game Grumps.
no, I
Well,
wouldn't.
this is-
I thought it was because he wanted to work on better JonTron episodes, for his own show.
Might have been both.
Mhm.
Yeah, probably.
My
I don't think
understanding
Aaron
is
has
they
the
made it
balls to do that.
But anyway, let's actually talk about Game Grumps with JonTron when he was there. And what did you guys think? Because, to be fair, I never really cared that much for Game Grumps. JonTron was actually pretty enjoyable, just because he actually bounces off Aaron. But admittedly, I think the funnest parts to watch were the animations that other people did when they would add music and all that. And I think my favorite ones, they were two that I liked. They were movie trailers, which are probably the most enjoyable thing. What do you think, Scully?
I don't really have too much to say about it, but JonTron was probably the only reason I really cared about them in the first place. With Aaron, I only really knew him from a lot of Newgrounds and Gamer Tonight, which was done by Rubber Ross, but honestly, aside from that, I just didn't really care about it. Again, as my most popular, second most popular video, I should say, will detail, I have some very nasty things to say about Aaron Hansen, mostly for his perspective on games and everything, but as for JonTron, he's completely fine to me.
Mm-hmm. Amir, what do you think of the Mordock?
Well, when I discovered Game Grumps, JonTron wasn't on the show anymore.
Oh, you poor soul.
But I did go back and watch all their videos when JonTron was there,
Good.
because YouTube.
Yep.
And
And-
I'm with you, Austin. There was an episode, or more like an animation that they had with JonTron that I really loved, but I can't remember what it was called.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on, I can
let's
look
see.
it up.
Anyway, CJ, what did you think?
Refresh me on exactly what I'm supposed to be saying here. Yeah,
John,
what was the question?
when JonTron was there.
When JonTron was there.
Like when they
Dude, this isn't how we scripted it. This isn't how we scripted it. Get back on the script.
I'll say when JonTron was there, it was at least moderately tolerable. Like if, and I'm gonna try to prevent the massive storytelling because I know I'm gonna have to do that at some point, but I don't want to, start this off with a, massive ramble. So I'm gonna say that when JonTron was there, it was tolerable enough that on occasion I'd watch an episode, primarily because of those animations that you guys mentioned. Somebody would make a source filmmaker or a flash animation based on something that happened, and I'd be curious enough to at least go back to whatever episode that was originally from and maybe watch it all. Depends on what the game was, depends on if they were actually being funny in it.
Mm-hmm.
So when he was there, it was tolerable. It was sometimes enjoyable.
Admittedly, and one thing I did like was John would at least counteract Aaron's opinions. Like they would have disagreements and all that.
The disagreements were mostly done in a friendly sort of manner like that. Like none of them were ever really aggressive, so to speak. Because again, I think they are still friends very much to this day. Like, and I think excuse me, I cannot think straight today, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that they were never really like at each other's throats or anything like that. But it was just more so a friendly discussion. And honestly, I'd say that JonTron handled it a hell of a lot better than fucking what's his face did. I can't even remember his name because that's how forgettable he is. I think it was, yeah, Danny. That's it. I just remember him as the yes man.
Yeah, the guy would sit around and just go, yeah, mm-hmm, oh yeah, yes, yeah.
Yeah, mm-hmm, oh yeah.
It's pretty much what you do and you're not really paying. He sometimes comes across as what you do and you're not really paying attention. The interesting thing, but now, after JonTron left, Aaron is a complete asshole on his own. He is really annoying on his own.
Can you tell us something we don't know?
When he has pretty much someone who will just sit there and agree with him, he really gets out of hand, and he really isn't funny.
Well, that's kind of the effect that anybody has when they're
soapbox and says and then denounces everything that is not old 2D.
Ignorant opinions aside, and one thing that I will give at least slight defense for is that, again, when you're commentating on something alone, like, it's never going to really have the same effect if you're talking with a group of people. This much I know from experience, but, if you don't inject your own personality into it, then it kind of falls flat, and, well, unfortunately, in Aaron's case, it's, doesn't turn out too well.
His personality does not always, like, on his own, really gets out of hand. Ego really is a good name. But then he always says stuff like, I'm just putting on a show and all that. And there was a video by Nick from Aquamagna that was talking about that, and I think he said it best, like, why would you need to put on a persona?
It's so you can easily use that as a scapegoat. It's like the nostalgia critic with his opinions. It's like, oh yeah, well, I don't really think this, because this is just a character, you see?
Yeah, wait. Isn't that called Schrodinger's douchebag, where you tell an offensive joke, and then, when everybody has a bad reaction to it, you say, I was joking.
Yeah.
That's an adequate term for it.
Schrodinger's douchebag?
And the animations are not as funny.
Say what? The animations?
What did you say about the animations?
The animations got less funny, like with Danny, because he doesn't really counteract Aaron all that much.
Well, actually, there's a very recent animation that I think is actually hilarious.
Really? What was it?
Yeah, it's called Updog. Because, be honest, Austin?
Yeah?
Your icon?
What?
It's Updog.
Is what?
It's Updog.
What's up, dog?
Yeah!
I was supposed to...
Okay. Hold up. Yeah, I'm probably gonna get this. I'm probably gonna about. I'm probably gonna get it while I'm in the grill at work tomorrow. But until then, let's just continue on with the discussion. But
it's up
what do you
there.
guys think? What do you guys think of Danny?
Egoraptor. No wait, have I gotten that wrong? Egoraptor's Danny, right?
No,
no.
Ego Raptor's Aaron.
Danny. No, Egoraptor's Ninja Sex Party.
What?
That's the name. That's actual on
Party?
Game Grumps. That's the actual channel name. One of them has a channel called Ninja Sex Party.
Oh my
I
god.
think that's Danny.
That might
I
be
thought that was a
Danny.
music video that JonTron just featured in.
Yeah.
That's an actual channel.
Oh my god.
Egoraptor. I think Egoraptor is Danny. I'm not sure.
No,
Is that
Ego
right?
Raptor's Aaron Hansen, dude.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Okay, yeah.
Danny, I can't remember what the fuck his username was.
Yeah, he's Ninja Sex Party then.
I guess so.
It's a disturbing name, isn't it?
Danny just honestly doesn't leave an impression on me. Like,
Okay.
I think it's mostly, I think it's more to do with his chemistry with Ego Raptor than anything else. Like, he doesn't really have the same sort of dynamic that he had with JonTron.
I think I have a decent way of explaining this. Like, because it's been Danny since JonTron left, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Because I didn't remember if there's anybody in between because I don't actually watch that channel. But
oh,
sick
that's a
burn.
good question. Was there anybody between JonTron and the JonTron leaving?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
The only really ones I know for the Game Grumps are Aaron, Danny, and John.
I think that
They once
what
had
about-
Go.
Cause I don't really watch the like Grumpcades very often.
Wasn't there a thing called, like, Steam Train that had, like, I think it was either Rubber Ross or Oni on one of
I
them?
think it was Table Flip. There was a thing they did.
Yeah. No, I could
Actually,
have
no,
sworn
wait,
there was, like...
Table Flip. Table Flip's a good Game Grump thing. I like that.
I don't even remember what happened to Steam Train.
Let me search it up.
what the hell is Steam Train?
Game Grumps.
It is.
Oh, it's
like
here.
a.
Right here. Steam Train.
It's like
Game
a
Grumps Steam
show on Game Grumps that doesn't have Ego Raptor, but I don't know.
Uh,
Nothing about it.
Ah, yes. Oh. Ooh, that's tempting. They did a Steam Train series
Wow.
on Stick of Truth.
Okay, what is Steam Train?
tempting, huh?
Oh, Ross. There's a Ross on Game Grumps, isn't there?
Yeah, Rubber Ross. He's the, he's an animator.
Yeah.
Oh, he's the guy who does the little the intro then, is he?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Oh, but I was going to make a point actually. I think Danny, in my opinion, the reason that, well, the only time that Game Grumps was really any good was, the John and Aaron duo, which since it's over means it's been downhill since, obviously. But
Yeah, because I don't have the
think-
same group dynamic as what it is.
Yes. I think part of the reason that nothing that Danny really does stands out is because he was kind of brought on to fill the void because John left. It wasn't like we're expanding out, we're getting a new member. It was we're replacing one who left. It wasn't like they had like a triad thing going on. It wasn't like they were playing Mario Party and whatnot every now and then. He didn't really establish himself as a different person. He was literally just brought on to fill the void of John being gone.
So Danny's basically a temp.
You could think of it that way, yeah.
And the downside is he doesn't really have these same, like, he's very much like, as a result, Eagle Raptor pretty much dominates, like his overall opinion dominates, and then he has so many viewers who, like his sheep, that'll just eat and believe anything he says. And he's a terrible gamer, and that's where I like get really annoyed. He like it's with Eagle Raptor, he acts like he's some big game design guru, and he can't play a game to save his life, especially a 3D one. Then he complains it's the fault of the game that he pretty much left during that time of games, like the early 3D era. And then as a result, everyone's looking at it like, oh, yeah, that's all terrible. And then, yeah, apparently ambition is dead, and people like that helped kill it.
In my opinion, idiots playing video games is pretty entertaining.
No, well, that's just stick, man.
Pointing at my channel.
Well, in that regard, then probably mine as well.
To me, Game Grumps may not be very good at video games, but I do find it entertaining how they struggle to try and complete them. And they manage to do so.
See,
Oh, if that's...
I'd like to take just a quick second here. It's kind of a little bit of a debate here, but it is somewhat relevant to Game Grumps in that, like, what I've heard most commonly is that Aaron, his specialty is more the 2D games and whatnot. He's very, very bad at 3D games, and that with I don't know about Danny. I've not actually heard anything about his capability with games, but with JonTron, it was kind of like an all-around level of skill. Like, he was equally good and bad at 3D and 2D games. God, I'm trying to figure out exactly how I want to phrase this, so go ahead and interrupt me if you need. Oh, God.
We're just enthralled by your point.
Well,
More enthralled by his R's.
What?
His R's, he's like Jeff Goldblum.
That's the Jeff Goldblum right there. You know, you just make up an entire sentence full of
Well, you see, you have to emphasize the R's of your sentence.
Yeah.
Ooh,
What I'd heard was the different skill at games. You know, Aaron's very bad at 3D, but fairly or moderately decent at 2D, and that JonTron was kind of equally good and bad at 2D and 3D games. Well, based on that,
that was the era he was familiar in.
I'll say that again. Sorry.
That was the era JonTron seems to be most familiar in, like the 16-bit to modern day games.
Like, JonTron kind of grew up around the kind of change era. Like, started off with the Super Nintendo, and then went on to, you know, the Nintendo 64 and GameCube. Like, I was watching a video with him, like, talking to the AVG, like, James Rolfe and Mike Matei, and I remember he was talking about Banjo-Kazooie, and I think this statement James made pretty much sums it up. Like, he said, "Oh, Banjo-Kazooie, it's good, but that's after my time. I really couldn't play that nowadays."
No, it's a generational gap is what I can really see between the two.
And then you get, like, a lot of the big online reviewers who are now, like, who kind of went around, like, maybe played a little bit of the early 3D stuff and just aren't all that familiar with it.
It was probably because of the fact that they were growing up around that time, and I guess wanted to move on before the whole, you know, man-child era, as I like to call it, came into full swing.
I will be right back. I just heard something very fragile break.
Oh, the ground.
Oh dear.
It must. I bet it was his ego.
But, where do we go from here? But, yeah, what I was saying, like, with, Ego Raptor, I think, falls into that category where, like, he constantly talks about, you know, the whole thing with NES games and all that. Like, he comes across to me as one of those guys who did, you know, play a lot of old, like, very old NES to SNES. And, like, I think in one of his early Game Grumps, he flat out said he never played anything on, like, the 64 and all that, and has no experience with it. And as a result, I don't take that. As a result, I don't. take him all that seriously. And then, like, I hate it when, like, you know, you get people who really do have kind of flaws in, you know, a lot of their arguments, which it's reasonable to not like it. I can at least see where they're coming from. But what I hate is when people, like, for example, like, act like, you know, their taste is superior, for example, or when their fan base goes nuts and then they do, like, they have like, no, they don't even really bother to make it clear, like, to the fan base that, you know, like, other people are gonna like this. What I might hate, they might actually like for the same reasons, and I hate that because most, especially a lot of reviewers, like the hot air reviewers, go under the assumption that everyone thinks just like them, like automatically, like they have the same kind of background with games.
So
Mm-hmm. And then, again, this kind of, while this is not just limited to Ego Raptor and gamers, I do see this a lot with Ego Raptor. Like when I think, oh, what?
Go ahead. You were talking first.
Because like I was watching some of his Sonic Adventure playthrough, and like to be fair, I was thinking of doing a Game Grumps parody where I was like playing Metal Gear Solid. But I remember like in that video, I get the impression that sometimes, like, I know Aaron hates Sonic for I don't even know why. To be fair, Aaron's one of those gameplay perfectionist types who, like, to him, everything outside of gameplay means nothing. Like, everything could be like, to him, I get the impression that to him, games is like Square. Like, you could have, like, replace basically character models with, like, a little square and all that, and just everything with kind of a void in gameplay alone. That's kind of how he judges everything, and then takes nothing else into account.
So basically, he's one of those. So, put simply, he was, or at least I'm running the assumption that he was the sort of person who, you know, around about the point where cutscenes became, like, more of a thing, like, around the late 90s. You know, he was the sort of people that say the video game should be all about the gameplay, not the story. You should go read a book or something, man.
I hate that argument, for the record. I know we're detracting from the Game Grumps topic at hand, but, you know, gameplay isn't the entirety of it. You know, unless you're intentionally making a sandbox game where the point is that there will be no story, you kind of need to have a good story as well. I mean, it's like taking through and playing. Oh God, I can't really think of a very good example, but you know, it's fun to play. It's nice and actiony and whatnot. Actually, no. A good example, at least in my personal taste, is Far Cry 3. I do have it slightly modded, I will admit, which makes it a little bit more addicting for me, but I wouldn't say it really improves the gameplay because it doesn't change anything functionally. I really don't like the story. I find it very boring. I find it very uninteresting. I take a lot more pleasure in running around the world, killing animals, harvesting the things from them, and then making all the upgrades and whatnot than I do actually progressing through the story. That's an example of the gameplay severely outweighing the story for me. And
another example of that I could probably... Oh, sorry to cut you off, but another example I could bring up of that is probably the original Doom story, because, you know, it was pretty much as basic as the original Super Mario Brothers. You know, hell opened up, gotta kill the demons, and honestly, despite the story being incredibly simplistic even for its time, you know, it's incredibly addictive to just go around blasting demons, firing off a BFG round, and, you know, it's just addictive first-person shooter fun that does outweigh the story in that sense.
For me, when it comes to stories and games, there's three, like, basic forms it can go. There's, like, excuse plot, there's medium story, and all that, where it's kind of a, you know, a story and game, like some like Sonic Adventure, for example, I think is a good example, where like where it's kind of both of them are kind of on the equal level, where none of them really outweighs the other. They kind of just blend together. Like, say you have the cutscenes, then the game logically follows that. And then you have something like Walking Dead, which is like a very big example of an interactive movie.
No, I'd say a better example would be games like Indigo Prophecy or Heavy Rain.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I momentarily forgot about those.
What were you speaking of there exactly? Because the topic changed to The Walking Dead there. Do you mean like the Telltale games? Ones?
Yeah, basically where it's less, you know, doing a lot of game things, and it's more about, like, you know, story-based things.
You want a game that's about story-based things?
Like something like Mass Effect in a way.
Minecraft
where
story mode.
player decisions,
Oh my god. That.
What?
I don't even want to go on a rant about that right now, but I cannot believe they actually... That should not
What the,
exist.
what
Wait,
the hell
what?
is Minecraft story mode, out of curiosity?
Telltale
sorry.
Games is making a Minecraft game that's all about the story, hence Minecraft Story Mode.
What
And
sort
to
of
me,
fucking
from
story would
its
you
little
do out of
trailer, it looks like just another remake of The Walking Dead.
I can feel my brain cells committing suicide.
Okay,
Just go search up the trailer later.
the basic thing there is if you watch any of those very high quality Maya and well, actually, I don't know if they're in anything else. I know they're done in Maya, or a majority of them are. Animated Minecraft videos, like if you've ever seen a Minecraft music video to anything, you have seen the entirety of the Minecraft story mode game right there.
Well, I mean,
It's just going to be about even more mundane things.
there's a music video called "I'm Believing" by a Minecraft YouTuber that's actually really well animated.
See, and that's going to be way more entertaining and free in comparison to the Minecraft story mode.
Yeah, because the graphics of that game, they're worse than the actual Minecraft game.
They're worse than the original Minecraft.
Yes, they're terrible.
I think
Minecraft
don't
animations are better than that.
I think part of the issue actually comes about in that they're trying to do it. Well, very much a large part of the charm to Minecraft is the what now resource packs, where you can change it so that sounds and visuals are very different. You know, they're trying to do like a really high quality 8-bit game. You know, a 3D 8-bit game. That's what they're trying to do, and it doesn't mesh well.
8-bit games and 3D don't go together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you know what? Despite as terrible as that is, it is nowhere near as bad as the Game Grumps.
Okay, yeah,
I always get a way to bring it back.
In my opinion, on a scale of 1 to 10,
Totally.
the Game Grumps are like a 6.
The Game Grumps, it's interesting since you can go into pretty much any weird direction when talking about them.
But
So,
Game
Zero out
Grumps
of
Ground Charm was a
back onto,
definite 10.
do you ever get the sense that when, like, with Danny and all that, and to an extent his audience, like, Aaron plans to do certain things really badly, like, quote-unquote, to be entertaining?
I see it more
badly for the sake of entertainment?
I will admit, some of the videos in their comedy do seem a bit forced.
Oh,
For example, we did a playthrough of Sonic Adventure where he was, like, glitching through things and, like, just trying to break the game in any way he could, and then he was, like, screaming, "It's terrible, how could anyone like this?"
see,
what
if
version was he playing? Was he playing the Dreamcast port or
Playing the DX version.
that filthy port?
We don't
Honestly,
talk about Sonic Adventure DX.
Yes. It literally does make me DX on the internet when they're
We
talking
drop
about
it.
it in the
We
comment
drop about
section.
it. We don't talk about it.
But, CG,
sorry, say that again?
what were you going to say?
To be honest, I don't remember entirely.
But
I
yeah,
can-
we're talking about like people like Aaron, for example, potentially just like faking, like doing bad.
It actually segues into a topic I was going to say a little bit earlier, but I didn't want to interrupt anybody, so I just kind of kept it to myself. But I very much think that all of, or at least 85 to 90% of Aaron's popularity and humor and whatnot comes about from very, very, very detailed, very, very heavy scripted things. Specifically, his sequelitis stuff. You know, there's no way that any of that is on hand, came up with on the spot. It's like you could never produce something like that specifically without being very, very careful and probably being a camera whiz. Just by sitting down in front of your camera and doing like a vlog recording type thing. You know, he obviously took quite a bit of time writing out a vague script and then probably going over it about 200-300 times to fine tune it to exactly what he needed it to be. So in that regard, when you get things like that he does, they are entertaining. Sequelitis is the best example of it right there. To a lesser extent, I'll say some of his personal Flash animations can go under the same treatment, but definitely not anywhere near as much.
That's really reaching it.
Yeah, like when you take his live performances, if you could really call him that, his live improvs, really, because that's what it is. That's what everything live is. And you compare it to something that he's painstakingly scripted out, it's such a drastic tone shift. It's like taking and going on YouTube and finding a fan film of, any given fictional media, whatever thing, where they use stop motion or claymation or something like that, which is effectively the same thing, but they use stop motion, claymation, or vector in some graphics for their effects and whatnot, and then going and comparing it to a multi-million-dollar budget film. It's two very, very different results out of it. I can understand liking Ego Raptor's work specifically on his channel, like his sequelitis stuff, and to the lesser extent some of his animations and all that. But the problem with YouTube and whatnot is, if you get like a popular YouTuber, for example, and this is kind of just an out there one, say if you had PewDiePie jump onto a really obscure or moderately popular YouTuber's game channel like that, just as a guest star for one part, it's going to draw in everybody who's really casual watcher, not really an casual and upwards watcher of PewDiePie's stuff, is now going to turn to that person and look at what they've been doing. And if for some reason he were to give like a positive rating, like I'm a friend of his, or I really like the stuff that he does, or something like that, suddenly a very large chunk of his fan base is going to not only become fans of whoever that was, but they're also going to kind of venomously defend everything that they do. So when it comes around to the people who are fans of like Sequelitis and his animations and whatnot, and we're back on the topic of Aaron here, anybody who really criticizes his performance on Game Grumps in comparison gets that fanboy defending argument thrown at them. It's like, I'm a huge fan of his Sequelitis works, and you'll see that they always, or at least very often, refer back to the specific things that they like. His animations are great, though. You can't fault somebody who does work like that or something like that. And haven't you seen Sequelitis or whatever? It's always going to round back to the specific things that they enjoyed thoroughly, or became fans of them in the first place for.
Mega Man Classic versus Mega Man X.
Yeah, and that's one of the main things that I enjoyed of his particular work. I'm not gonna. I admit that I'm one of the few people online that would rather very specifically pick apart everything that I watch to determine whether or not I like it, rather than a casual YouTube watcher who just wants to watch somebody who does things that they think is funny. They're going to jump over to some other project and whatnot. Maybe they'll feel kind of weird about it at first, but a part or two in, they're going to like it a lot for apparently no reason. And then it's their hero on YouTube or whatever. So they're going to round the arguments back to whatever episode that hooked them onto it. So in Aaron's case, you're going to see somebody reference, like, haven't you seen that Mega Man versus Mega Man X Sequelitis? He made such great points and whatnot through there. Well, yeah, that's very heavily scripted. He made great points there because he took a lot of time to work on that. You can't really take a lot of time to work on a live playthrough. So
it depends very much on the Game Grumps sort of style, because again, theirs is just very much what the fuck ever, let's just jump into it, rather than, you know, something similar to, say, the Hellfire comps, for example, where they have, like, very structured, despite the fact that even some of the times they mess around and whatnot, like, it's still very much, I don't want to say politely structured, but it's not necessarily as chaotic or random, so to speak. So the varying commentary style is really what is going to make or break it.
Well, see, I think what the better way to handle something like that, you know, like when John Tron was part of the show, you had Aaron bashing on things that he didn't like, and if it was something that John Tron did like, you would see their the back and forth banter about, you know, like, you know, John Tron would tell a story about, at least this is kind of what I figure happened. I'm not entirely certain that this is exactly how the exchanges would go. It's generally how it would, as far as I know. But, you know, Aaron would say something like, you know, I hate how, just as an example, if you jump into the deep water in Link to the Past before you have the flippers, you just kind of teleport back up for whatever reason. You know, just if he hates that for no apparent reason, just any given thing that he doesn't like. If John Tron saw that, you know, there was logic behind it, or he enjoyed it as a part of the gameplay function, you know, he would retort with an actual comment on that, arguing his, well, not really arguing, but stating his opinion and viewpoints on it. You know, like, well, it makes sense because he doesn't know how to swim at this point. You know, because, you know, the game or the developers don't want you to be able to have access to things ahead of time. You know, it's part of game design and all that. And they'd have their little banter and then move on to the next topic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you know, that's very different from taking a live performance. You know, that's an actual discussion or debate amongst peers at that point. That's where you can actually have thoughts and opinions expressed thoroughly. You know, assuming it's not doing it the Fox News style where you just talk over the other person. You can have an actual civil discussion about it like that. And that's where live commentary can actually be interesting and different and whatnot, and legitimately entertaining, at least in my opinion. And it's still very, very different from painstakingly scripted out things. Like, if you want your varied opinions and whatnot, in my opinion, the best way to do it is to get people who have similar experience but different viewpoints on things. Like, if you have two people that played through this game, whatever it be, each of them has a very different opinion on it. You know, one person very much enjoyed it for this reason, this person very much hated it for these other reasons, and then you have a third person that's kind of a mediary point. That's when you're going to get the most interesting live commentary on it, in my opinion. Otherwise, you're going to have to do some forms of scripting for it. You know, like doing live commentary is kind of a pain in the ass, and I know this from experience. So if I'm ever doing a commentary over video game footage of some sort, I'll watch through it beforehand and, you know, take like a notepad and jot down a couple discussionable topics, and sometimes just partway through it'll lead me into a tangent that is actually at least relatively interesting to myself, so I'll have something to talk about. Oh shit.
Yeah.
My computer legitimately just went to sleep. What the hell?
Yeah.
Anyhow. Yeah, I've been...
But anyone's still...
The one downside with what you were saying about, like, you know, different opinions and all that with live commentary is, like, Danny doesn't seem to really have a second one that really counters Aaron. He just kind of goes along with everything, which is actually, I think, important in big groups like that, because, you know, everyone has their own conclusion and all that, and I hate it when people go, like, you should watch this guy has the right conclusion.
Well, it seems to be very much just based on... I don't want to say that Danny's an ascended fanboy, as TV tropes would like to put it, but, you know, I mean, if you, like, say he was probably, like, a big fan of Aaron Hansen, like John Tron was, like, way back in 2002 or whatever, like, you know, you're not really going to be arguing with somebody that you enjoy so much, you know, or at least to some degree. You know, like, unless, of course, your name is Corey Taylor, I don't think you're going to be ballsy enough to say, no, mate, you're fucking wrong, or anything like that.
Do you mean, like, do you mean to at least suggest that Danny might be a little bit afraid or in awe of Aaron. Like
Yeah,
he's been ascended.
yeah, that's.
He's been ascended to
Well,
an
I'm not necessarily afraid, but more so.
Sorry to
Um,
interrupt, gentlemen, but I'm afraid this is where I'm going to have to say goodbye.
Oh,
We'll miss you, but hey, it
I
was
have to
great
go
having you
somewhere
on
at
the
7:30 in
discussion.
the morning.
It was great having you on the discussion, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right,
Thanks for
man.
having me on.
They'll mention it anytime.
Scully, don't kill anybody.
No, I won't. I'll just glare into their souls and destroy them.
Oh boy. It's gonna be so much fun. Final words. The Game Grumps. 5 out of 10.
final thoughts.
The Game Grumps. 5 out of 10. Before JonTron left. 8 out of 10. Bye bye.
I'd say that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Anyway,
Anyway,
let us press onward.
Yeah,
We-
we don't need him. I need anybody.
but did you mean like that he's sort of an elevated fan? He's been brought up to his level. He doesn't exactly want to
Yeah.
alienate her by
I don't
having a different
necessarily think that he wants to, not necessarily anger nor be afraid to share his opinion that differs from that of Aaron, but the thing that I can see it as is that really, it's more or less a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually, commentate over games with, somebody you, I guess, grew up loving. So in that sense, I think it really just comes down to the fact that, he might as well just enjoy it while it lasts and tries not to spoil the time he has while he has it. I make it sound like a very complicated relationship, but I guess it's just kind of how it is. As far
I
as I
get
can
the
tell.
impression that Danny just doesn't have that much experience with a lot of video games, so as a result, he just kind of has to go all he doesn't really have the ability to really counteract with Aaron on, like, for example, especially early 3D games, where for the most part he just kind of goes along with them. Like, Aaron hates things like Mario 64 and all that. And for the most part, Danny doesn't really counteract him all that much.
So it's more so a case of Danny's inexperience rather than him not really having that much of a solid opinion nor the will to really speak out about it.
Yeah, I think it's more just a lack of experience. Like, he's not really that into gaming and all. Like, well, I wouldn't say that. Like, he just wasn't as... He's not as knowledgeable on gaming as someone like, say, JonTron is. And he doesn't really have... And, like, I get that impression. So he can't really, he doesn't really have the experience to counteract Aaron with anything. He doesn't have his own heavy, like, gaming experiences that he can really mention that... All that.
That little infidel, I bet he started out playing Candy Crush.
Oh God! Don't even.
And
Well,
I
it was
don't want to
different.
make, and I don't want to make judgments. Like, who knows? I might be wrong, but I get that impression from watching him. Like, he just can't. Like, he doesn't have the experience to really connect. It's like he doesn't, and because there's no like JonTron there to like say I disagree and all that. He doesn't really have any other like opposite voice outside of people in the comment section, which I do remember in the Sonic Boom playthrough, like, Eageraptor just treats people who comment against him like, and in the beginning of the sequelitis for Ocarina of Time and Link to the Past, he just treats them as a bunch of idiot fanboys who just can't see past their nostalgia. Like, I sometimes get the impression that Aaron has a really ridiculous sense of self-importance. Like, it's his job to save gaming, to save those dumb, poor gamers from themselves before they kill.
So basically, he's running under the movie Bob mentality of like, I'm the one sane man in this world that's slowly heading towards idiocracy, and that I must save them because I am Aaron Hansen, hero of the Northwest, savior of gaming, and runner-up in the Landlubbers hot dog eating contest.
Yeah, but nowhere near as bad as movie Bob.
Well, true. But then again, as far as I can tell, Aaron just is... Like, there's a way of going about your opinion without being completely douchey, and it's really with how you word your arguments. Like, you can get the same effect by saying that, oh, yeah, Ocarina of Time is the best video game of all time. But then again, if you say that, then people are going to get pissed off and say, oh, well, that's kind of inaccurate. But you can honestly just change that around by saying that, oh, it's my favorite video game of all time, and still get the same effect across.
Mm-hmm. But then you're going to get those people who apparently I hate the whole idea of a wrong opinion or a wrong point of view, since, everyone has their own background and thing that gave them their point of view. And of course, the internet seems to be a floodgate, especially comment sections. They're just a big floodgate for those people to just fight in, and being anonymous and no real restraint.
Actually, it does kind of fear me that there's going to come to a point in, time where people just take this internet anonymity thing just like way too far, and we just end up not necessarily at war with each other, but just, losing that sense of, discussion and familiarity with other people to the point that, we just let our untainted opinion slide purely because, again, we're under the mindset of, lol, this is the internet, nobody can hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing.
Or the ridiculous sense of self-importance. Though I hate one-sided debates, though. Like that, especially those ones where people commentate, where they just kind of pick out the insane people and just go, no, yeah, this is what they all think. Just look and point and laugh.
And that's basically just generalizations in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. What do you think, CJ?
I kind of went on my own mental tangent about what I was thinking about saying, and then kind of forgot what was being talked about. So refresh me on exactly the question there again.
Your brain is filled again.
Basically, things like having the right opinion and all that, and a ridiculous sense of self-importance, things like that, where that person is dumb and must be fixed by screaming at them like a 2-year-old.
Oh, I don't like that opinion. I'm going to have to yell and scream at you like a 3-year-old.
Scream at how wrong and dumb they are and how they're dumb for having the wrong opinion.
Oh, I think you're holding the wrong opinion there.
Rest in peace, headphones.
Rest in peace, headphone users. That'll show you for having the wrong opinion.
Yeah, speakers are clearly the way to go.
Yeah. Anyway, let's continue on with this, though. CJ, what were you going to say?
What I was going to say was, it doesn't really exactly have entirely anything to do with everything you guys were saying, so I'm not really sure if it's 100% relevant or really worth even saying, but I'm very much one of the people that actually respects other people's opinions on the internet. And oh my God, I must not really be a real person. I must be one of those computer bot things, because no real person actually respects others' opinions. But I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong about various things like that. And a lot of what I do, like a lot of my YouTube projects right now, which none of which are actually uploaded, are very, very, very damn slow. Just because I'm trying to work on them very, very severely. Like I mentioned with Aaron putting tons and tons and tons of work into making an actual good an actual good video, good content like that. I'm trying to make it, based a thing. God, I'm tripping over my own topics here. I'm trying to make it something that isn't gonna step on people's opinions. It's gonna kind of stand up on its own and allow for everybody's differing opinions and whatnot. I could actually explain this if you guys want, but it's not really important right now, so I'm not gonna just go into it. But the attempt is, to kind of work around all that stuff. Make something that can't be entirely focused on opinions or changed by opinions or something like that. Yeah, you could disagree. That is your opinion, but it's not exactly like I'd be throwing my opinion in your face and saying, this is how it is. That's my issue with certain reviewers. It's, I like how this does this. I think this is really cool. Like, to be honest, it's something I see a lot in the Nostalgia Critic, and I do actually see a little bit of it in almost every review out there, both JonTron and Aaron included, to be honest, where their personal opinion will kind of flavor their words, so to speak. It doesn't entirely directly influence it, but it is going to change the kind of tone and inflection and whatnot that they give off with it. So they're going to say things that align with their beliefs and all that, their opinions and all that, more so than anything else. And the best example of that, in my opinion, is the Nostalgia Critic, because of that recent spoof, parody, whatever the hell it's supposed to be, review, of Jurassic World, where near the end of it, I don't know if you guys watched it or not, but he's kind of went on like a fan excite fest, I guess, about how just so awesome the final fight scenes and whatnot were, and that it totally makes up for everything else that's bad in the movie, and it's just so incredible or something like that. Well, that's his opinion. Just because you think this fight scene is incredible doesn't mean it is incredible. It just means that you think it's incredible. Yeah, it could be a very impressive to watch one, but it doesn't automatically make it good. It's
because...
No, go ahead.
It's mostly because that... Well, sorry for cutting you off, mate, but from what I can tell, it's mostly because a lot of people can't really see beyond their own subjectivity. Like, I mean, what one person sees is absolutely amazing. It could be somebody else that's just, yeah, whatever, just pulls out a fucking newspaper and starts reading. And that's the biggest thing that nobody takes into consideration, is that, somebody could look at the fucking clouds and go, Jesus Christ, man, that's beautiful. And people just go, dude, it's just a fucking cloud. Relax, mate. But, the point I'm trying to make here is, before I go into a huge tangent, is that, what one person might find good, bad, or amazing is going to be completely different to what you're going to find good or bad. I mean, it doesn't necessarily even seem like it's like, oh yeah, man, this is just the best. The best, no arguments whatsoever. It's just my opinion. There's going to be disagreements either way, but the thing that people need to understand is that, respect for what other people enjoy is a quintessential key to coexistence. People like different things, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's this one guy, I don't remember his name, but he told me this. He's like, I'd wish people could coexist so when the inevitable end of the world comes, I don't have to live to see it.
Interesting phrase. I was gonna use this as an example, actually, to do a really quick summary, just so you have some context here. The kind of thing that I'm trying to do with my YouTube channel involves perspective-based reviewing, and not even really reviewing, just more informative videos about content. You analyze a game, or more specifically how I'll be doing it. I'll analyze a game, I'll talk about what it does, how it does it, that kind of thing, and then point out, like, if you're a fan of this kind of thing, you'd enjoy this game, at least to an extent. If you're a fan of this kind of thing, you'd really like this game. That kind of resulting video. That it's still kind of it's very much an imperfect mold at this point, because it's, to use a fairly decently debated argument, is QuickTime events in games, and then the quantity of QuickTime events in games. I have no issue with QuickTime events in games specifically. I think I especially warmed up to them in I think it was Castlevania Lords of Shadow that got me to kind of accept them, because they were worked in well enough that I didn't find them intrusive. I thought a few of them were kind of stupid, but I didn't see it as a game-wrecking thing until some of the boss fights where fucking them up resulted in your instant death, which is kind of a running theme with this. But when you take and you start turning entire games into QuickTime event things, you start moving into, we just want to tell a story territory, which seems like a very heavy excuse for making a bad game, to be honest. And this, I admit, comes partly from my disdain for Telltale games. Like, I don't like the Walking Dead Telltale games. I don't like the concept of the new Minecraft story mode thing. I think
Well,
their only original IP is The Wolf Among Us, or whatever it was called, and that's something that they haven't.
well, to stand up for The Walking Dead, coming from somebody who did enjoy the game, at least in comparison to that of the show, that's really the only thing I really have interest in regards to The Walking Dead. But, you know, games like that, and I'd say even Back to the Future to some extent, you know, they're not designed to be, you know, average video games, like, get to the end of the level, fight the bad guys and all that sort of thing. It's designed more so to be like an immersive experience in that kind of world, and especially in The Walking Dead more so than anything. Like, your decisions, you know, are really what makes up Lee Everett's character, or whoever he plays in Season 2. You know, so it's very much just up to the players to see how they would react to certain situations. Like, for example, would you save this person if it meant, you know, ended up attracting a lot of the walkers to your position, or would you just leave them behind, get away quickly, but you have that person's death on your conscience? You know, it's meant to be that sort of game rather than your traditional video game combined with a story.
Oh yeah, and I understand that. You know, I do know that it's some people's cup of tea, per se. That they do enjoy just the simple, you know, I want to experience the story rather than go and get a challenge of the game. You know, I think that's why I don't remember the name of the mode in Mass Effect 3 exists, where it's basically a very simple shooter instead of an RPG, and it's meant to be just kind of a run and gun. You know, you still get your fill of gameplay action and whatnot, but you know, there's not major amounts of strategy that you have to employ. You don't have to be very, very careful about it all. You don't have to, you know, specifically plan out how you're going to spec all your characters with their skills and their stats and all that, and the equipment and blah, 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 blah. All the RPG elements are cut down very significantly just so that you can run and gun, you can have your action, you can have your fun, and you can enjoy the story more than anything else. And I do understand that, at least to an extent, with the Telltale Games things. You know, I know they want to tell stories and whatnot. That's why they're called Telltale Games. But still, but it seems to be the only thing they ever want to do, and they're all based off of other IPs. You know, Walking Dead. Was it them that did the Back to the Future thing?
Yeah, it was Back to the Future, the game, which is essentially Back to the Future Part 4 in my opinion, but anyway. Oh, they also did a Jurassic Park game as well, I think.
I think they did, actually. But, you know, that's just more fuel to the fire, in my opinion. No, they just use other existing IPs. Like, they did do the Wolf Among Us, right?
Yeah.
You know, and that was a custom IP, if I remember right. I don't think that was based on anything. They came up with every bit of the evidence, or every bit of the story, the designs, the characters, all of that. You know, that was very much something that they built from the ground up. And it's, as far as I know, their most well praised and I think critically acclaimed, outside of the obvious, you know, oh hey, it's a famous thing, we better review that, product that they've produced at this point. Which I think is what they should really gravitate towards doing. You know, make unique stories and whatnot, rather than just base it off other things to kind of drag in popularity and whatnot. And as I was saying a little bit earlier, is, you know, it seems to be very much a quick time event. The game, less so than I want to say, because it's
less
not
so than
really...
Indigo Prophecy or Heavy Rain, to that extent.
Did you say it's less so than Heavy Rain?
Because Heavy Rain and Indigo Prophecy, like, those are the quintessential examples of, you know, quick time events of the game. Like, it's mostly involving the analog sticks in Indigo Prophecy, but then again, that game is, it does have slightly more gameplay than you know, any of the Telltale games to that extent. But, you know, David Cage, for as insane as he is, he does try to blend gameplay and story integration somewhat seamlessly, whereas the Telltale games are, you know, it's designed more to be like a dialogue tree, or I'd say arguably an RPG to some extent, because in the Telltale games like The Walking Dead or whatever, you're constantly going around dialogue trees and exploring different facets of the world and just seeing different outcomes to what you select. Whereas in Heavy Rain, or even Indigo Prophecy, there's only one place you can really go in the story. Like, you can have a multitude of different actions, but the result's going to be the same, you know?
Hmm. Okay, well, um, in that regard, I'm going to continue a little bit. I don't really have a direct response to what you added there, but it's not entirely a quick time event, the game, and at least not to the extent of what was it, Indigo Prophecy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one myself, I gotta admit. Or Heavy Rain, which, aside from, I believe, the bit where you're looking around for Jason, is entirely, follow on-screen command in terms of gameplay. It's press button, hold button, release button, move, analog stick, that kind of thing, which I'm pretty sure that's the entirety of the game, really. It's much less so in comparison to that, but it's still, just a heavy focus on telling a story rather than making a fun game to play. And I'm kind of being a hypocrite here in saying all this because, while I'm very annoyed that they just base it off of other IPs and just do very minimalistic gameplay in the way of telling a story, that's exactly, well, it's not 100% the same, but it's very, very, very similar, at least, to one of my all-time favorite games, Asura's Wrath, which is very much like the Philips CDI slogan "plays like a game, feels like a movie" is very appropriate for this title because it's very cinematic. It's very follow the button, press on screen, but it's not very intrusive somehow. Like you're a lot more engaged by watching what's going on and hitting the Y button as necessary or mashing the B button or whatever based on what the screen prompts you to do. Then it really that is the gameplay for that until you get into the more full-on controlled segments at least. But somehow that just does it right, I guess. And me bashing on Telltale Games for doing that with The Walking Dead and whatnot is, has proven me to be a little bit of a hypocrite regarding, that, since that's basically what Asura's Wrath is. But, I think it really needs to be the unique IPs thing, I think. And they need to do some more unique things with it. Just telling a story is not a good art. I don't think, you start getting the negative reviews and whatnot about, a Walking Dead Telltale game for whatever reason. And they're just going to kind of say, well, we didn't set out to do this or this, we just set out to tell a good story or whatever. It's a fallback argument, and it just annoys me.
Well, I can see your point, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I have nothing for that. You made your point.
Mm-hmm. For me, I do like games that do kind of blend them. Like I think I mentioned, the adventure games actually do kind of a thing where they're very much, both the story and the game are very interconnected.
Yeah.
Basically, little talky parts are pretty much the cutscenes, then, the action parts are, like the action parts that would normally be like action scenes in a movie or what you play.
I would actually say that that's a perfect example of a story-driven game. The story is what makes you want to play it, and the gameplay leads to more story, more gameplay, more story. It's a very self-fulfilling prophecy in that regard.
What story is, as far as I can see in a video game, it's very much, context for the reason why you're fighting. I mean, you can have a basic plot, like, oh no, Princess Peach is kidnapped, Mario must save her, go do that. Or, even in Devil May Cry's case, there's, an unwritten, rule. You're visited by Trish, she wants you to defeat Mundus, you head off to Malay Island, and, then the story is just simplistic from there, which is very much just like, I guess, narrating your own story to that extent. Like, okay, I know it sounds really confusing, but here's an example. Like, okay, you can just narrate it as, okay, Dante arrived at the gate. Upon finding out that it was locked, he decided to press on to find a weak wall. He slashed it with force edge. He then progressed onwards to find a key to the gate. He returned to the gate and opened the gate, and then discovered a seal of the amulet, which was being guarded by Nilo Angelo. You know, it's kind of those sorts of stories that seem to have the antithesis of that. Yeah, the gameplay kind of outweighs it in that sense. Fuck, that was confusing.
The point A to B to C to D to E and so forth plots where it's, accomplish objective to get back to the previous objective to get back to the previous objective things.
Yes, that's it.
You got to do a really large, complicated thingamafucker. You got to go or you got to go find the switch and then slash it, and then, oh shit, there's a guy guarding it, and that was all just to go through a door.
Yep, pretty much.
That's just padding out the game. It's not necessarily a bad thing. You can have actually very entertaining variants of that, I think, especially if it splits off to be, if you had a non-linear game built around that kind of thing, like, say, I guess a good example would be like, what if you got to go find the switch, and you got to go break open a something or other. So you find the switch, it reveals the something or other, you go break it open, you get the item. Well, this whole time, the example being Nilo Angelo is running around looking for some other thing. Well, if you don't continue through the level at least a moderate pace to encounter him, he takes it instead, or something like that. And then you've got to find a different way to get through the objective or something like that. Have it change up at a relatively frequent pace based on how the player does it. Exploration is rewarded with different items and whatnot, and different routes and all that. But playing through it quickly in an efficient manner is going to prompt out the best paths and whatnot, so to speak.
That's actually fairly intuitive game design.
I'm not sure Devil May Cry would be the best example, or not example, but the best choice of game. But
I speak more so for the first game, considering the fact that it was just coming out of that, Resident Evil beta phase, where it still had like a lot of exploration elements. Like you could still revisit areas even though your mission had near nothing to do with it, or unless of course you were looking for one of the secret missions. But it's still a pretty interesting concept to think about.
So, get back to Game Grumps.
Oh, right, yeah, that was a thing, wasn't it?
Oops, tangent.
Really, we should kind of call these rambles about general topics.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, it was focused. Well, it was for the most part focused on the the Game Grumps. So I guess you could probably just title this Game Grumps plus rambles about other shit.
Really good.
Yeah. Probably what I'll do. Game Grumps plus ramble.
Game Grumps, new title 2016. Confirmed.
Yeah. So, anything else you guys want to say about anything with the Game Grumps?
But the Game Grumps specifically?
I honestly don't care about the Game Grumps anymore. Like, I thought I'd have nothing really to say, and honestly, I really don't. It's just, like, again, like, if people like them, fair enough. I'm not gonna, sit there bashing you for your taste in entertainment, but as for me, the Game Grumps just seem, I think it's Aaron more than anything else that puts it off.
Yeah. For me, I'm not too fond of most Let's Play kind of things, just because then you get a lot of, especially in the Game Grumps case, because then you get just a lot of screwing around, especially even when John was there. Like, after they completed the Sonic campaign in 06, they just kind of would just screwing around, just like, hey, remember this, I went to Disneyland, and then I did this, and I had a popsicle, and used the bathroom a few minutes ago. Isn't that crazy? kind
Uh,
of along those lines.
I don't mean to hang on this particular topic for too particularly long, but um, just as a quick, what are your thoughts on type question? When it comes to videos like that of people trying to let's play or do playthroughs or walkthroughs or whatever it's supposed to be, but the basic gist is they're playing a game. Um, is if they're doing it live and they're doing commentary over it, do you think it's more important for them to have gone through and done either a practice playthrough to the game or memorized various things that they need to, or be familiar with it enough that they can play through it at a constant rate rather than messing around and mucking about all the different rooms and whatnot, just checking kind of randomly and stupidly for secrets or whatever the hell. Like, if it's a random thing in the room, yeah, sure, I can understand that. But if it's just, like, oh, I wonder if there's a secret in here. I'm gonna run at this wall for 30 seconds to see if the wall will just disappear or something like that. Is it, one of those things that you guys figure should be kind of standard? If you're gonna do a let's play and you want to do it for any long-term amount of time, that they should really practice it out beforehand, you have some experience to go off of.
Yeah. I'd say that helps.
I think it's almost necessary, to be honest, but I do see at least some amount of entertainment for the people that enjoy watching, particularly blind playthroughs. I can understand if they're confused and lost and whatnot through a blind playthrough, but if they're doing like a popular game that's all over YouTube already, there should be some pretty straightforward things. There should be some standards set in, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's all make our conclusions on Game Grumps. So for me, kind of what Doctor said, I'm kind of with him. With Danny, I'd say it's more 4 out of 10 because really they're just kind of boring. Then there's just those moments where Aaron gets really annoying, where his opinion just gets so ridiculous, and then just the way he treats those who disagree with him as if they're just below him. Like they're just a bunch of idiots, just really irritate me. And then he has his sheep that just go along with it. With John, it does help that he can bounce off of Aaron and, doesn't just kind of go, oh, yeah, mm-hmm. Anyway, what do you think, Scully?
Game Grumps. Honestly, even with John there, that was really the only reason why I cared. Like with Aaron, especially Danny, just don't care about it. 0 out of 10, would not fap to again.
Didn't know you were doing that in the first place. But anyway, CJ.
Oh my.
Oh my.
Oh man, you did that fucking...
I think I'm going to have to break it up just a little bit into the John and Aaron period versus the Danny and Aaron period. When John was there, I want to say it was, for me, probably around a 6 out of 10, because John was just enough to get me to occasionally enjoy it, and it was mostly in those animations, because there's exactly one animation with Danny in it that I actually openly laughed at. There was several with John. And I watched those animations more so than anything else. So probably 6 out of 10. It's really average in terms of content back then. It's pretty boring altogether, to be honest, at least for my tastes. I knew what I was going to get into every time I opened up one of their videos, unless it was for, I just want to see the origin of this animation audio. Even then, I basically knew what I was getting into. For the Danny and Aaron period, I'm honestly going to have to say 0 out of 10. There's nothing redeemable about it. There's one animation that I actually enjoyed. One. It's like the Obamacare statistics. 1 out of how many is not good numbers. It's no. So So yeah, 0 out of 10. No, not anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, that'll conclude this one. Goodbye. See you another time.
Catch you on the flip side, baby.